welcome to Nana's Crafty Home. My name is Tanya. Today's tutorial is going to show you how to crochet corner to corner rectangles. You are probably already familiar with how to make a corner to corner square, and this tutorial is going to show you how to make different rectangle shapes with your corner to corner skills. So this tutorial is geared to someone who's already familiar with the corner to corner technique. I do have a basic corner to corner tutorial if you are a corner to corner beginner, and I would suggest trying that out first before you move on to this technique, because this is really geared more to people who are familiar with this technique already. I am going to focus on creating two different shapes of rectangles in this tutorial. One will be in the landscape and one will be in the portrait. Now you might ask the question, why would we need to have tutorials for both? You can just turn your rectangle from a portrait and have a landscape rectangle, same shape. Well, the reason being is if you are going to be working in a color work graph, so if you are creating a scene in corner to corner, you may be working from a design where the shape is more of a portrait. This is going to be in more scarves, that type of thing. But even in blankets, they could have more of a portrait shape. And also you will need to know how to work one in the landscaping style as well. I have a lot of corner to corner designs that will utilize both of these shapes. I have scarves in the corner to corner color work for the portrait style. I have a lot of designs for blankets that utilize more of a landscape. And what does that mean? That means that you're going to be working your decreases on only one side while continuing to increase on the other side to create a rectangle shape. And that is a question that I get a lot from people who are already familiar with how to make a square where you are decreasing on the same row on both sides of your project. So this tutorial will help you learn how to make the rectangle shapes in corner to corner. I will be using graphs during this tutorial to give you a visual of what I'm working from. And if you are interested in seeing these graphs and what the written instructions would look like for each one of these graph styles, I do have a complete written photo tutorial as well, and you can find that via the link that I have below in the description of this video. And that may help you visually to see these graphs in action, as well as what the written instructions will look like for different size graphs. During this tutorial, I will be using a size H or a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. And for the yarn, I'm going to be using some Caron Cupcake that I had on hand. It is a self-striping yarn, and you can use any yarn that you would like if you are following along in this tutorial. Let's go ahead and get started. So I am working this graph. This is a rectangle shape in a portrait style. This would be great for scarves. So I've worked through row 10 on my graph, and you can see, according to my graph, that I'm going to begin decreasing on the left edge of this pattern. So I've worked through row 10, and now I'm going to begin decreasing because I'm on the left edge of my pattern, and I'm going to do that by a regular decrease, just slip stitching into those double crochet stitches that I just worked and into the top of that chain 3, and I'm going to chain 3. And then 3 double crochets in that chain 3 space. And I've just done that decrease. I'm now working to that left edge and going up. So I'm working row 11, and I'm going to complete row 11 just as I normally would, chaining 3, working 3 double crochets in each chain 3 space, slip stitching into that top of that chain 3. So when I get to the end of row 11, if I were working a square, I would begin decreasing here by slip stitching and then slip stitching to the top of those double crochets and continuing on with decreases. But I want to continue on working increases on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and work my increase by chaining 3 and 3 double crochets into that space. So I'm already beginning to see the start of that rectangle shape, decreasing here while continuing to increase here. And I'm going to continue increasing until I've completed row 15. So continue on increasing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then working your double crochets into your chains to make that increase. And continue on in your pattern. So you're just going to continue on decreasing on the one end while increasing on the other. Now you can see that I have finished row 15. So when you look at the graph, row 15 is as tall as I want my pattern to be according to the graph. So I'm going to continue on in my pattern, but now I'm going to begin decreasing on the top edge as well as the left edge. So now I'm going to begin decreasing here as well. So instead of increasing like I would have normally for row 16, I would now turn and decrease. So just slip stitching into the top of those stitches. Slip stitch into that chain 3, chaining 3, and working 3 double crochets in that chain 3 space. So I have worked the decrease now on that side as well. So now you can see that I'm going to stop growing in height as well as I've continued decreasing on this edge, and I've created this rectangle shape. So now I would just continue on working decreases on both sides and just finish this graph out by decreasing until I've completed this pattern. So now we're moving on to working a corner to corner graph in a landscape style. So you can see here from my graph that I'm going to be working 10 blocks up, beginning to decrease and continuing to increase past row 10 on the left edge through row 15. So it's opposite to what we just did with the portrait style of graph. So I've worked this through row 10, so it looks exactly the same as the square, as the portrait. We're in the same place. But now you can see from my graph that I want to continue increasing through row 15 on the left edge. So on the left edge here, I'm going to work my increase just as I normally would by chaining 6, and then 3 double crochets. And then working this row just as I normally would until I get to the end, and I am not going to increase on the other side. So I'll work through this row and show you what we're going to do on the other end. So I've reached the end of row 11, in which I've increased on the left side, and now I want to decrease, because you can see from my graph that I'm now decreasing on the top edge. So I'm going to work a standard decrease by slip stitching into the top of that chain 3, turning, slip stitching into each of those stitches that I just worked from that last block, and then working my rows. So now on this end I will continue working my decreases and continuing to increase on the other side. And I will continue doing this through row 15. So I've worked through row 15, decreased on the top edge, and finished row 16. And I'm back down here on my left edge. And you can see from my graph, 15 squares, 15 blocks, and I begin decreasing now for row 16. So at the end of row 16, instead of working a block on top of this one, I'm going to slip stitch, turn, and begin decreasing for this side. So I will now be decreasing on both sides of this pattern, and just continuing on with my regular blocks, and continue decreasing on both sides until you have completed the graph. So you can see that I have finished my landscape rectangle, and you should now feel comfortable creating a corner-to-corner rectangle, either in a portrait style or in a landscape style. We've taken our square, and now you can make all 3 shapes. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial today. Thanks so much for being with me. As always, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you never miss a new video. You can find me at nanascraftyhome.com, where you can find a lot of free patterns, tutorials, and resources. Thanks everyone. I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.